I'd like to share with you some disturbing information from the book on homosexuality by Dr. Lorraine Day, an orthopedic trauma surgeon who worked in San Francisco emergency hospitals for over 20 years. Dr. Day was on the faculty of the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine as associate professor, and she was vice chairman of the Department of Orthopedics. She was also the chief of orthopedic surgery at San Francisco General Hospital and is recognized worldwide as an AIDS expert. During her time at San Francisco General Hospital, she performed emergency surgeries on thousands of homosexuals who came into her emergency hospital after having severely injured their insides during standard homosexual sex. This video will be exposing the fact that male homosexual sex is itself a health hazard that spreads disease and causes death, a fact that the LGBT community and the media who lies for them have tried their hardest to cover up. Anal intercourse, semen in the rectum, suppresses the immune system. The question is frequently asked, why are homosexual males exposed to semen by anal intercourse more prone to immune suppression and fall easy prey to other infections than women in general? Its answer can be found in the striking difference in the tissue structure of the vagina and that of the rectum. The vagina is lined by thick layers of mucous membranes, stratified layers of squamous epithelium, in medical jargon, below which lies another layer called the vascular lamina propria, which is richly supplied with blood and lymphatic vessels. In contrast, the rectum is lined with a single layer of mucous membrane that is much thinner, below which is no barrier between the columnar epithelium and the underlying blood and lymphatic vessels of the rectal lamina propria. This difference between the anatomic structure of the walls of the vagina and that of the rectum is primarily responsible for making the former, the vagina, more resistant to trauma, erosion or ulceration, and infiltration of semen into the vascular layer lying below the squamous epithelium than the latter, the rectum. In plain English, this means that the lining of the vaginal tract in a woman is stronger, tougher, and more resistant to the effects of sexual intercourse than is the lining of the rectum in either men or women. This is a very important factor in the health of the person's immune system. Besides, the nature of the sexual intercourse, whether it is vaginal or anal, plays an important role in the transmission of AIDS. As a rule, women do not engage in anal sexual intercourse as frequently as promiscuous homosexual men. In fact, many women have never engaged in anal intercourse. The semen of homosexual men is known to have a greater immunosuppressive potential than that of heterosexual males, due to complex interactions, that is, induction of autoimmunity and biochemical changes in the soluble components of the semen, because of the excessive promiscuity of the majority of homosexual men with exposure to the body fluids of so many sexual partners. It is a known fact that autoimmune response is capable of producing tissue injury or biochemical changes in the semen. Women who have anal intercourse with bisexual males may be more prone to AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases than those who have anal sexual intercourse with heterosexual males. Women who routinely engage in anal sexual intercourse exhibit immune abnormalities akin to those found in homosexual males. Without getting into the emotional side of this issue, and sticking strictly to a scientific understanding of the human body, we have to become aware of a simple fact. The tissues of the vagina and the anus and rectum are designed for different purposes. It is true both have a similar sensory system attached to a single central mechanism for the registration of pain and pleasure, but structurally, they are not the same. The vagina has a thick, multi-layered cell lining that, while not easily absorbing the semen from inside, is designed to withstand friction and shearing force. Even here, there is a mechanism for secretion of lubricating mucus to withstand these forces. Furthermore, semen has chemical properties that will increase the thickness and resistance of the lining membrane in the vagina. The seminal fluid secreted with the sperm has a very complex composition. It contains a chemical substance called TGE. In certain circumstances, TGE binds some proteins to other proteins. It also causes some cells to die in a special way, to shrivel and not disintegrate, thus its power to produce a thickening of the vaginal wall to cope with normal male-female sex relationships. The semen also contains proteins with extremely strong immune suppressive properties. It is the immune suppressive property of semen that will facilitate the passage of sperm all the way up into the uterus and its tubes to fertilize the female egg. To the body, the millions of sperm that enter the uterus are the invading foreign objects and highly reactionary for the uterine wall and its tubes, had they not been protected by the immune repressive properties of proteins from the semen that bathed the sperm. To survive during 9 months of pregnancy, because the sperm has different antigenic properties to the mother's tissue, the mother's immune system has to be suppressed for the duration. It seems that something in the semen codes for the mother's immune suppression. It is this immune suppressive property of semen that ensures the survival of initially the sperm and ultimately the fetus during full-term pregnancy until the production of a living offspring. The semen in the female vagina is not absorbed. Because of the anatomical design and position of the vagina, the semen is drained. On the other hand, the rectum is lined with very thin and delicate cells. In the rectum, the semen is retained because of the anal sphincter, and its extremely potent physiological properties are allowed freedom of action. Within the constituents of semen, there are substances that are designed to overtake the host's immune system and force it to shut down the same way that a radar jamming device is used on board warplanes to enter the enemy airspace and deliver their bombs. Thus, semen has independent ability to shut down the immune system of its host tissue if its agents are allowed entry into the recipient system. With repeated secretion of semen into a male or a female rectum, immune system suppression is unavoidable, not because of a virus, but because of the chemical properties of the semen itself. In addition to all of the above, the intestinal wall is not capable of withstanding the forces involved in rectal manipulation for sexual purposes. The reason why such sexual manipulations become possible is because of one single fact. The intestinal tract does not have an acute pain sensory system if damaged from inside, without the damage affecting the peritoneum. The peritoneum is the thin outside covering of the gastrointestinal tract. It is amply supplied with nerves that will register pain. It is a type of non-adhesive that permits the various segments of the intestinal tract to glide over one another in their movements and adaptation to the passage of food. The rectum is not completely covered by peritoneum. More evidence of suppression of the immune system by the presence of semen in contact with the rectal mucosa. More than 90% of people with AIDS develop circulating immune complexes, CICs, and lymphocytotoxic antibodies, LCTAs, antibodies that destroy lymphocytes, a type of white blood cell necessary to fight disease. One such cause, for which both epidemiologic and experimental evidence exists, is semen. Semen components include sperm, seminal fluid, lymphocytes, and sometimes infectious agents, including HIV, mycoplasmas, and herpes and hepatitis viruses, all of which independently cause immune suppression. These data prove that immunologic exposure to sperm and lymphocytes, as may occur in receptive anal intercourse, needle sharing, or blood transfusions, is theoretically capable of initiating lymphocytotoxic autoimmunity, destruction of the person's immune system. Such autoimmunity may play a significant role in the pathogenesis, causative factors of AIDS. It is common knowledge by now that at the outset, AIDS in America was an almost exclusively homosexual disease, appearing in cities such as New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, cities with large gay populations. In fact, that was its initial name, GRIDS, Gay-Related Immune Deficiency Syndrome. But that soon became a politically incorrect name because the homosexual community, a community that comprises less than 5% of the U.S. population, did not want the heterosexual population, that comprises 95% of the population, to be frightened of the horrific disease they were giving each other, and eventually, the larger population. So the words gay-related were dropped and the new name became AIDS, Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. But it was in the gay bathhouses long before it was found in the streets. Drugs, prostitution, blood transfusions, and bisexuality provided handy bridges to let it cross sex preference boundaries. Anal sex specifically, and rampant promiscuity in general, drove the bridge crossing. Same-sex relationships are notoriously unhealthy and dangerous. Even those that might be labeled monogamous, as homosexuals define the term, would be considered high risk by most accounts. Homosexual men involved in steady relationships engaged in unsafe sexual practices more often than homosexual men without a steady partner. Such practices are directly linked to AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. The Dutch government found 67% of HIV-positive men aged 30 and younger had been infected by a steady partner. Semen in contact with the rectal mucosa, whether the partner is a monogamous or a promiscuous partner, or whether the anal recipient of the semen is male or female, it is still damaging to the recipient's immune system. I want to speak freely of the gay community's involvement in, and contribution to, the mind-boggling, health-shattering explosion of AIDS and numerous other serious, life-threatening diseases confined almost completely to male homosexuals as a result of their sexual practices. As a doctor working in a trauma hospital in San Francisco, I want to speak of the injuries resulting from male homosexual sexual practices, both to the individuals directly involved and subsequently via AIDS to the larger general population. I hope you are now able to see that the narrative that homosexuals are just like us, except for the fact they have sex with the same sex, is a lie. What Dr. Day has exposed for us here is that anal sex, which is the type of sex that male homosexuals are forced to have in the absence of a vagina, is in itself a severely dangerous type of sexual activity, one that causes the body to turn against itself, causing serious disease and eventual death. Male ejaculate is itself immune suppressive, on purpose, because the immune system inside of a woman's womb must be suppressed so her body does not reject the sperm, and then the baby. The female body and the male body are perfectly designed to work together in harmony, and thus, the woman's body protects her from any harmful effects of male ejaculate. Of course, because two men are not biologically designed to copulate with each other, when a man uses the rectum of another man as a substitute for a vagina, his ejaculate ends up suppressing the immune system of the recipient, as well as causing internal damage to his rectal tissues, which are not designed to be used for sex. This reality should alone be enough for people to understand that homosexuality has nothing to do with love. It is instead a self-destructive, hateful, unnatural, and abusive sexual fetish. Homosexuality is a sadomasochistic addiction. Only the severely mentally disordered would sexually abuse their own bodies and the bodies of those they claim to love in such a disturbing way. Could it be that nature is trying to tell us something by giving deadly diseases to the ones who violate her laws? Anal sex goes against and violates nature, as well as the biological design of our organs and our immune systems. The fact alone that nature has deemed anal sex to be deadly proves the fact that there is not a single homosexual on this planet that is psychologically and sexually healthy. Because desiring homosexual sex is itself a sign that something is deeply wrong within the psyche of a person. Men who are sane do not engage in dangerous and disease-spreading sex, the type that destroys their own immune systems, as well as the immune systems of those they are having sex with. The anus is not a substitute for a vagina, and anyone who thinks it is a fetishist with a severe mental disorder. No psychologically and sexually healthy man would find the butthole of another man to be sexually arousing. And how dare anyone compare homosexual sex, which cannot be had in a way that is not abusive, to wholesome heterosexual lovemaking that can create life? Homosexual sex creates death. Heterosexual sex creates life. And homosexuals are incapable of making love. Their sex practices should actually be called making hate, because all homosexual sex really is an expression of self-hatred, as well as hatred for the sex partner. You don't destroy someone's immune systems and their insides when you love them. That's not love, it's hatred and abuse. And being against this type of degenerate and narcissistic sexual behavior has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with science, biological reality, and common sense. So, whether you believe we are intelligently designed, or if you are an atheist who only believes in nature, homosexuality is wrong and harmful in both cases.